In this tutorial, we're going to be writing a conversion program that prompts a user for an amount of inches and then converts that to the number of feet and inches. And when we start writing programs in this class, we're always going to start by planning out what our program is going to look like. So in Replit, you can open up a new file, and I'm just going to call this planning. And then it gives you a workspace to kind of think about what your program is going to look like. And so when you do your assignments in this class, I want you to do these steps as well. So imagine this program running for your user. What is it going to look like? What kind of information are you going to be asking the user for? And then what will it look like when it outputs the information? And so we're going to call that our sample run. And we're just going to imagine what this is going to look like when it's run. And you always do this first before you start coding. So I'm going to always start with some kind of welcome message. So I'll say welcome. And then I'll tell them how to run this program. So enter inches, and I will tell you the number of feet and inches. Okay, and then I'm going to prompt the user to enter the inches. And I really like adding this space at the end of the prompt. I don't like when my user starts typing up the number of inches, right next to the prompt. I think that looks kind of squishy. So I'm going to always add that space there. So they're going to enter, let's say, the 47. Okay, and then I need to calculate what 47 inches is in feet and inches. So if I divide 47 by 12, that will give me 3 feet with 11 inches left over. So my message to them will be 47 inches equals 3 feet and 11 inches. And then I'll just type a goodbye. I always want some kind of message at the end of my program to indicate that the program has ended normally. I'm not going to just leave my user hanging there like, did it finish correctly or what? Okay, and so the cool thing about creating a sample run is after your program is written, you can use these numbers to test to make sure your program is working correctly, right? We know for sure that 47 inches is 3 feet and 11 inches. So when I run my program, I'm going to type in 47, and it better output 3 feet and 11 inches, or I know I probably have some kind of logic error in my code. Okay, so that's the first step that you're going to do. Always do that. And then we're going to plan out the steps of the program, and that's going to be the pseudocode. And remember, pseudocode is just fake code. It just lets us think about the steps that we're going to have to perform in our program before we actually start coding. And the first thing that you want to do is always identify what input are you asking that user for, and then what output are you going to be giving your user. So I can see from my sample run that 47 is an input, right? The user will type in 47. And then my output is going to be the number of feet and the number of inches. So I'm going to identify my input will be inches. My output is going to be feet and remaining inches. Okay, so this tells me that I need 3 variables to create in my program. And so I'm going to declare those variables and then just give them a default value. And I think inches we only want to, do we want to allow whole number of inches or decimal portion? Can someone enter like 2.5 inches? I think they should be able to do that. So that type of data is called a floating point, right? It has decimals in it. So I'm going to say float inches, and then I'll sign it just to 0, 0. And why I do that is just to kind of clear out that memory location. And then my output, I need feet And that's also going to be a floating point. And then the remaining inches. Okay, so I've identified all of my variables that I'll need in my program. And so after this step, well, actually, now we're kind of ready to think about all the steps needed in order to do this whole sample run. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to print my welcome message, right? And then what do I do next? I'm going to prompt for inches, and I'll store the input into inches. Okay, so whatever they type in, I'm going to store that into inches variable. And then I'm going to do some calculations, right? How do I calculate the number of feet in remaining inches? Well, I'm going to use integer division, because when I divide a number by another number using integer division, it's just going to give me that whole number. It's not going to give me any decimal portion. So, because I want a whole number of feet. And so I'm going to set my feet to inches divided by 12. And remember, in Python, to do integer division, I'm going to be using this symbol right here. So if when I divide this, 14, if I did this on my phone, 14 divided by 3, or 14 divided by 12 is, 3 point something something. It's just going to truncate that decimal portion, and it'll only return 3, which is what I want. Okay, then how do I get the remaining inches? Well, that's where we're going to use that modulus operator, because when we divide 47 by 12, what's the remainder? We know the answer is 3, but how many inches are left remaining? And that's what that mod operator will do. So I'm going to take inches and I'm going to mod it by 12, and that's going to give me the remaining inches when I divide inches by 12. Okay, so that's how that works. Just give me the remainder. What part is left over when I divide inches by 12? Okay, so now that we kind of figured out all the math, then it's going to be a lot easier when we get to writing our program. Okay, so then what do I do next? I need to print inches equals feet and remaining inches. Okay, and then I'm going to print goodbye. Okay, and all of these steps in your program should be numbered, and this will be very important when we get to iteration, but you should number your steps so it tells you exactly what you're doing step by step. And this part can take you a minute, right? You have to think about all the logic and what you want your program to do. And it may not be right, but that's okay. You're going to give this a good start by planning out all the steps, which will make it a lot easier when we get to coding. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this pseudocode and I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to go to my Python program and I'm going to paste it. Okay, and I'm going to comment that all out. And an easy way to comment out in Replit is to highlight everything and then hit Control and the /. That's the key with the question mark on it. If you're on a Macintosh, it would be the command and then the /. And that's just a toggle, right? It'll just toggle it back and forth from commented out to not commented out. Okay, and now I'm ready to go. Now I'm ready to start converting all of my steps 1 through 10 into Python programs. So the first thing I have to do is create my main function, and I'm going to go ahead and put the call to main down here at the end just so I don't forget it. Okay, and then the first step says to create a variable called inches and assign it 0, 0. And it's going to be a floating type. Well, in Python, you don't specify the type of data being stored. So in Python, we can just say inches and then give it a value. And then for step 2, we're going to do the same thing for feet. And then step 3 for remaining inches. Okay, then we're ready to print our welcome message. So I'm going to print welcome. And since I had it all planned out over in my planning document, I'm just going to go over here and copy the next line so I don't have to retype that. So on line 5 it says to prompt for inches, and then on line 6 it says to store the input into inches. Well, in Python we can do both of these steps in one step. In other languages we might want to break it up into separate steps, but you can prompt and store in one statement in Python. And to do that, we are going to say inches is assigned, and then we'll input our prompt. What do we want to say? Enter inches, like that. And since input will read in what the user types as a string, just as a string of characters, we want to convert that to a number. So I'm going to convert that to a float. Okay, and then we have our inches. So now I'm ready to go to line 7, and that says set feet to inches divided by 12 using that integer division operator. And then I'm going to get remaining inches, and that's going to be inches mod 12. And then I'm ready to print my results, my output. So I'm going to print, and then I'm going to print what they typed in. So I'm just going to echo that back out to the screen. So inches equals, and then feet, and remaining inches. Okay, so remember, when in a print statement, if the argument is a variable, it's just going to print the contents of that variable. And then if the argument is a string literal, right, it's a bunch of characters between two quotes, then it will print those characters to the screen. But it's not going to print the quotes, it'll just print those characters. And in Python, it does something tricky. Between each of these arguments, it's going to print a space. So let's see, and then my goodbye message. So print goodbye. Okay, so let's take a run and see what happens. So enter inches, and so again, I want to go back to my planning document, and I want to input what we planned. So 47. So 47 equals 3 feet and 11 inches. Goodbye. So looks pretty good. The only thing is we could probably use a few blank lines in our output just to make it a little bit more readable. So before I prompt them, I'm going to add a new line. Okay, and then probably before the goodbye. So 47, yay, it works. So, but we're not done. We have to think of other input to test. And so another input would be maybe when there's no inches remaining. So what if I enter 12 inches? It should just say 1 foot and 0 inches. Let's see. Oh, that works. And then what about input that's less than 1 foot? So how about if we did 8 inches? So 0 and 8. What if we did a decimal? What if I had 13 and a half inches? Okay, so that equals 1 foot and 1.5 inches remaining. Yay! And so that's the tutorial on using the modulus operator to find the remainder when we divide inches by 12 to calculate the remaining inches.